Hey, what's up guys? Ryan Walker here again with Phoenix Studios and myphoenix.com, and I'm ready to do this today. We're talking about Syntheyes, gonna do a basic tutorial. I just had a Zions energy drink, so I'm jacked up on Zions and ready to go, so let's just jump right in. So on Facebook, Asri, I'm sorry if I slaughtered that, but he said, if you make tutorials about Syntheyes, you will be my hero. So let's not even mess around, let's get going. Jump right into Syntheyes. Let me show you the shot that we're dealing with here really quick. I'm just going to replace this with another box so we kind of get an idea of how to use Syntheyes. But we got a handheld shot, kind of panning around the side with our awesome motion tracking markers there. But let's just bring this clip into Syntheyes and get going. Alright, here we are in Syntheyes. Just going to start a new project here. Here's the footage of what we just looked at. 30 frames a second is right, and all this looks good. Alright, so everything's caching into the memory now. I'm going to push the auto tracker. And it's calculating how well everything tracked. So, according to the Syntheyes site, you want this horizontal pixel error to be about 0.75 or lower, which makes a good track. So at 0.8, I mean, that's not too bad for right off the bat. And what we're going to do is go through these trackers and see kind of what we can clean up and get that horizontal pixel error to go down to have a more solid track. So what I'm doing now, I'm just kind of scrubbing to see if anything's moving. Also looking at the front view here, top view, see if any of these points are moving. If any of these were sliding around, we would want to just highlight them and delete them. But I mean, they're not really moving around, and they're actually sticking on pretty well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go to clean up trackers, and you can read more about what all this means now, but it's basically going to take the trackers that are slipping around the most for us and just delete them. So press fix. Got rid of those bad tracks. We're at 0.84 now. Now that we removed those tracks, let's solve it again and see what we get to. So 0.68, that's underneath 0.7 or 0.75, so already off to a good start. Everything's looking pretty good. We can keep this going though, keep refining our trackers even more. So I'm gonna click fine tune here, settings. Make golden, so it's just going to run through it again, make them even more solid. And let's see what we get with this. Alright, solve again. 0.680, so 0.5, 0.59, that's even better. Even better. Alright, so this is looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up a coordinate system for when we bring it over into Cinema 4D. And we just start right here, click on the coordinate, and 3 points is good. It's going to ask us to select. So right off the bat, origin. So we're now we're thinking in Cinema 4D terms here of where the space is going to be. And I'm going to start, let's see, I'm going to try to find a marker that's pretty close to the box here. And let's just say this one. I'm just going to ask for the x-axis. If you see, as soon as I click this switch now, and just going to pick you want to get as close as you can to the same plane, as close as you can in that x-axis. So I mean, we can pick this one. It might move around a little bit, but let's just go ahead and select that. It changed. And now we want our Z information. Apply a coordinate system, the ones we just picked. Yes, let's do it. Alright. So as you see, our camera shifted over a little bit, and we have our scene created for us now. So now that we've done that, we've made our coordinate system. We can bring this into whatever 3D program we want. For me, I'm going to export a light wave scene so I can bring that into Cinema 4D. Let's just call this Syntheyes. Let's do this. Save. I'm going to go with the defaults here. Press OK. Alright, now that that's done, let's go into Sim 4D. Alright, here we are in Sim 4D. Here's that light wave scene. I'm just going to drag it over here. I've noticed that if you go with a scale of 1 here, you'll have all the same motion, but your scene is so small that you have to zoom in a lot to figure out exactly where you want to set up your points. So I like to do just a scale of 10, say OK, and now we have all our points just like how we had in Syntheyes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these trackers, and right now it's displayed as dots. I'm going to make it rectangles, and then I'm going to have it use a color, and let's make them, let's say red. Alt-G to group them, and there are our trackers, and don't really need the environment. Next I'm going to make a background with the footage that we just used. Double click new material, double click that. Don't really need specular color. I'm going to select the movie. That's the one we just tracked in Syntheyes. Push OK, and double click it and open up the animation properties, and it calculated the right frames per second, but sometimes it might not come in correctly, and it's key that you work in the same frames per second throughout the whole process from Syntheyes, Cinema, to After Effects. So I'm just going to drag this on the background, and there we go. There's our footage with all our tracking points. Let me double check the comp and make sure it's also 30 frames per second. So let's close that. And when we set up our coordinate system in Syntheyes, we picked X, or this is our origin, X, and Z. Now obviously this isn't an exact straight line across, and this isn't exactly straight back. So with our cinema scene, if I drop an object in here, let's say a cube, it most likely 9 out of 10 times will not be remotely close to what we're looking at. So, you know, here's how our cube looks default right now. So let's hide that. We know that this tracking point right here is on the side of the box. So let's find that tracking point. Change the color to, yeah, blue seems good. All right, I'm gonna go to the top view now. Hide all these, turn my box back on. And we know that tracking point that we just highlighted is the side of the box. So I'm gonna do, highlight the cube, move it over, I'm gonna line it up with that marker, and then our front trackers are also in front of the box. So I'm gonna just have it be a little bit up. So let's see here. So it's blue tracker is the back of the box. So let's just make it like that. And let's just scale it down for now. And we can adjust this to hide the rest of it later. And what I'm going to do now is I could adjust the cube to make all this match. You know, so move it over, have it up a little bit. But the more objects you start to use, you'll have to make those adjustments for everything. So I'm going to just go back to the default settings. This is how it was. I'm going to take my camera and the trackers, Alt-G, this is our scene. And instead of adjusting the cube by itself or anything else we put in there like a floor to catch shadows, I'm going to take the whole scene and we're going to just adjust the scene to get this all to match up. So let's move forward a little bit. And we kind of just want to keep the perspective of what we're dealing with here. Just bring this down a little bit. And you know what? I'm going to bring in a floor so we can adjust it with the floor as well. And all these tracking points is where the floor is supposed to be, but let's just adjust this right now. Alright, so that floor is exactly where the box is. Just move it in the middle. And now I'm just going to make, fine adjustments to the whole scene so we can start to composite this all together. There we go, we have our box tracked in with our footage. I'm just going to turn off these trackers, we don't really need them anymore. And now, if you watch the other tutorial, I'm going to go through the process of setting up our scene to match. Obviously, if you render this out right now, we have our square, floor with our box, and nothing's matching. So what I'm going to do is take our plane, which is technically our shadow catcher, holding control, dragging up the same material that's on the background, right click, compositing tag, and tell it that it's part of the background. So there we go. Now we just need to add some lights for our shadows, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to turn these off. And there's really not a lot of shadows going on here. We have really, really soft shadows on each side and dark a little bit underneath. So let's add a sun in here to try to start matching our scene. We can always adjust this in After Effects later. So right now, here's our scene. Let me turn off the background here. Our sun is underneath our whole entire scene, so the sun control is going to be a little finicky, but just play with it until we get to match. Don't need to interpolate time. Let's get this going in the west. Just going to raise this all up. There we go. Alright, so we got our sun set up. Let's see what that looks like so far. Alright, so you know what, I'm going to turn up the aliasing while we're here now. Best animation 1x1, 2x2 is usually a good place to start. And right now, the shadow is just way too harsh compared to what we had in the real video. So you know, I'm just going to change this to area shadows, and it doesn't need to be pure black. And the density, it's not going to be a lot. Even that's too harsh. The sun should really be up more. So let's just take the sun, adjust this up a little bit more. It's basically right on top of it. While we're here, change the color. Maybe a lot, more of a wider blue. Alright, so instead of area, let's try soft, just see what that looks like. And that's getting a lot closer to what we had. And these are all, I mean, this is just playing with it. I might not get this exactly correct just so we can keep moving. But let's turn it down a little bit more. See what that looks like. That's looking pretty good. Let's turn on ambient occlusion, get underneath, get more shadows around our box and everything. And that's already looking a lot better. Looking pretty good. And I'm just going to probably add one more fill light for the front. Let's bring it up, see what that looks like. Bring it back a little bit more. And then this sun is still pretty blue. It's more of a gray. It was about to rain, I think, so. Alright, there we go. So we have everything tracked in, matching. Our shadow catcher is doing its job. What I'm going to do next is set up a couple of multi-passes so we have more tools inside of After Effects to composite this to make it look more like it fits into the scene. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cube, Sim 4D tags, compositing tags, and I'm going to add an object buffer. And what this is going to do is it's going to make a track mat that I can use in After Effects to solo this out by itself, and I can color correct it, tint it, whatever I need to adjust that separately. So let's go here, multi-pass, I added shadow, RPG image, ambient occlusion. Let's add one more multi-pass, which would be our object buffer, which is number 1, which is our cube, and that's really all we need. So what I'm going to do is just click render, and we'll probably move this over. We'll come back and talk about this when this is all done, but just a quick tip. When you're doing multi-passes, it'll default to image right here most likely, or information. If you go to layer, single pass, and click on each one of these in your multi-pass, you can see exactly what's getting rendered out. So ambient occlusion is our ambient occlusion shadows right there. Shadow is what's being casted by the sun and also the light. Our background image, and also here's our object buffer. So as you can see, it's only affecting the cube. And then we'll use this as a track mat to be able to color correct and adjust just this cube to fit into the scene better. I'm going to render this out, and we will come back and composite all this in After Effects, and that should be it. So see you guys in there. Alright, so our footage is done rendering with all our multi-passes, and one thing I think I forgot to show before we move into After Effects is in our save, I did regular image, multi-pass, but also I checked compositing project file, and this will bring in all our lights and our points in our camera into After Effects. So I saved that project file as well, and I just want to make sure I covered that and said that I checked that as well. So with that said, let's move into After Effects. Alright, so all I'm going to do, this is the folder that we export everything to. Double click that. I'm just going to drag our After Effects project file in there. Gave us 2 folders of all our passes and our renders. And then I'm also going to go back. We're going to find the exact same clip we've been using this whole time. Drag that in After Effects. Make a new comp. And here's our footage. Let's go with our, let's see here. So this is our render from Cinema. Put that on top. This is our object buffer of our cube. So let me show you how we're going to use that. Let me turn off our background there. So here's the object buffer. Here's our render. I'm going to make this a Luma matte. And now we have our cube with our transparency. Turn the background back on. Alright. And so the main reason I did that instead of leaving the render all together and separate the two is because our footage has a lot of motion blur and our cube has no motion blur. So one of the things you can do, since these are also separated, now I'm going to put these in their own comp. This will be our, let's call this our square. Move all attributes in there. And I like to use Real Smart Motion Blur. Great plugin to use. And already we have some motion blur inside of our scene. But if you don't have that, no problem. Just go back up in here, put in Time Warp. And let's add the Time Warp effect to our square box here. Speed, 100. We're going to leave pretty much everything the same, but what we're going to do now is enable motion blur right here. Turn up our shutter angle to maybe 16 or so. There we go. We're starting to get a little bit of motion blur on the sides here. Turn it off and on. And it is a little render intensive, but you know, definitely comes for a better composite. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, so I'm going to turn that off, and let's get our shadows and everything back. So here is, let's see what pass this is. Here's our shadow pass. Just going to drag that on top of everything. Going to set the composite mode to multiply. Then there we go, there's our shadows. And let's also add our ambient occlusion pass. Just going to do the same thing. Set it to multiply. Now we can control that as well. So a good thing with the multi-pass by separating all this is it allows us to control this and have more power over it. So I'm going to solo this, shift F8 to take a picture, put it back on, and I'm just using this to kind of get an idea of what our shadows look like. So that, I mean, our shadows are still technically too dark. So I'm going to take our shadow pass right here, lower this down. You know what? I might add a fast blur as well to just spread that out. And our ambient occlusion is pretty harsh, so I might just bring that down a little bit as well. And we could get into more color correcting techniques in other tutorials, but this is more just a workflow with Syntheyes to Cinema to After Effects. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn the Time Warp back on, or basically our motion blur back on. And just to kind of bring everything together, I'm just going to add noise on the whole thing. Don't need color. Let's say 2%. And could also, we could do a little bit of color correction by just, you know, darkening this a little bit. And it's looking pretty good. Let's render this out and see what we have. Alright, so there we go. This pretty much covers it for a very, very basic tutorial on Syntheyes to Cinema and back into After Effects, using the multipass to kind of bring everything together. Gives you more control. And I think that'll do it. If you have any more questions, again, as always, leave them at Facebook or the homepage of myphoenix.com. And I guess until next time.